Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Samaan. It's great being back with you. We're starting a new series today. I hope you're ready for it. Unmasking Narcissism. My first book was on unmasking addictions. Thought I'd follow that up with unmasking narcissism. So keep us in mind as you think about these areas of difficulties in getting along with certain people. Pathways to healing from the mask of false self has a lot to do with unmasking narcissism. The fragile core beneath the facade is what brings out that narcissism in individuals. And we're going to be talking about that. I finished writing the book, Unmasking Narcissism. Now it's just polishing it up a little bit and finding a publisher for it. And I'm sure it'll be out within a few months. Introducing this subject is easy because everybody talks about it all the time. You hear about it, there's so much said about it. Working with narcissistic clients can be challenging. It can be mentally and emotionally draining. And one area of working with individuals with characteristics of narcissism is you have to be patient and you have to be respectful and kind, but look through that mask. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And throughout this series, we're going to identify, I believe it's about 7 types of narcissism. Some types you've never heard of before, I'm sure. It's very fascinating to think how certain people that I had never thought of as narcissistic in the past actually do have all the characteristics of narcissism. They just portray it in a different way. The challenge is not that they're bad people, and they're not bad people. And anyone who may be haughty and prideful and all that, I never think of them as bad, and you shouldn't either. But they're full of defenses, and their defense systems are intricate and exhausting. Assertiveness often triggers that volatile exchange that can occur when you're dealing with a narcissist. In an instant, they can just become very angry, very upset, and then in an instant, drop right back down to being pleasant and kind or charismatic at the moment. And sometimes watching TV, watching the news, politics and all that's going on, I like to look at the faces of some of the people when they first are appearing on stage or in a presentation or in a discussion with someone else. And a lot of times you can see that edginess about them, but they just seem very open and friendly and all that. But the minute something comes to them that they don't like, you can see the constriction in the face. You can begin to notice the tenseness in the body. You can start to see that they're holding themselves back. There's more wanting to come out. And if they weren't in front of the television screen or the camera, you bet that more would come out. And a lot of times I hear from those who have been traumatized in childhood by toxic parents, and most toxic parents are narcissistic parents. There's other kinds as well, but they'll tell me that they can pick up on that narcissist who's walking in the grocery store or who they walk by on the street. Just by seeing them, their antenna goes up. They can pick those similarities that remind them of their childhood and the intensity of the moments that would occur in their home. The challenge they present is not rooted in them being inherently bad, as I just said. It's in those defenses that they bring up, the mind games that can both be perplexing and exhausting to navigate. My naturally non-confrontational supine, as I've mentioned it before, you have various temperaments, and supine is my temperament. I have it, in fact, I have it all the way through, social control and affection area. The National Christian Counselors Association developed this survey for identifying temperament types, and they added the supine, which used to be called the passive sanguine temperament, and it was so different. The differences were significant, and the surveys never turned out very well until they broke it off and identified it as a supine temperament, that's primarily in the right hemisphere of the brain. And then the surveys became 93 to 95% accurate. And oftentimes I see these paper surveys coming from the churches, and I'll do them as well, like everyone else. And they're just contradictory, and they're not very accurate because they didn't break off that passive sanguine. And when you do, then you start to see more definitive identity in the supine temperament. In fact, it's a bit rare, and one of the California universities, I forgot which one in Los Angeles, did a study on me. Actually, they sent me this big, thick book of questions, and I had to fill it out and send it back in. Never found out what the results were, but they were interested in identifying more about that supine temperament. But getting back on track here, my naturally non-confrontational supine, it's non-confrontational. I can be confrontational, but I choose not to be. I don't have to be. I can handle things without being confrontational. But if needed, you have to confront, and that's necessary. So sometimes that allows me, though, in being more laid back, to get along well with narcissists, get along well with difficult people. They sense I'm not challenging them at every step, at every spoken word. However, there are times you have to challenge them. There are times you have to confront, because if you want them to get well, if you want them to grow, if you want them to pay attention to the mirror image that they're trying to project themselves as perfect, and you're trying to help them to see the truth in the mirror, well, then they don't like that, and and out comes that, and I've had all kinds of reactions from different ones over the years, and for those that really are serious about improving themselves or getting along better with their wives or their husbands or others, they stick it out and they make those adjustments. And we're going to be talking all about that in this series. My interest in this is to help anyone who's not only has narcissism, but those in relationships with the narcissist. And I use that word relationship loosely. Can you really have a relationship with a narcissist? One who's been identified as a narcissistic personality. And again, in the continuum, you have mild to severe. And in the severe range, once it reaches that moderate range, there's no conscience anymore. There's no sense of right and wrong. It's what's right for me, as far as they're concerned. And once they get beyond that moderate range, there's a lack of sincerity. It's just, what are you going to do for me? What am I going to get out of this? When it stops, then they throw you away and find another source of supply. But as it's rolling along that continuum, the sociopathy begins to present itself. Antisocial personality begins to present itself. Now they're breaking laws. Whether they get caught or not, that's another matter, but they're breaking laws because they have a right to, they're entitled to, and they get into this malignant zone. And so the severe becomes malignant, a malignant narcissist. And here's where Jezebel is located, in that malignant narcissism realm. And we'll be discussing that in detail in the future. So that dynamic shift that occurs dramatically when situation requires assertiveness with a narcissist can bring about excitement and the adrenaline rush, stimulation to whoever is around them. But the important thing to realize is it's not you, it's them. And what you're really seeing is what's coming out of them, what's on the inside, their fears, their weaknesses. They are getting projected onto you. And when that occurs, then you can see, there's the real person. There's the real fears. Whatever they're accusing you of are the very things they are afraid of about themselves. And we'll discuss that as well. The subject of narcissism has been extensively studied, as I mentioned earlier, and there's a lot of material on it. And I encourage you to watch all the videos, not only mine, but so many others and scholars. I'm not a scholar, I'm a counselor, and I've learned a lot in the over 30 years of practicing my counseling, Christian counseling, clinical Christian counseling. But there's so many others who have a lot to say about this subject. Watch them all, because you're going to learn a little bit here and a little bit there. And it's going to be very interesting in helping you to get along with someone who may be that way, either at work or at home. Keep in mind that the point is you're not supposed to change them, but you are supposed to be a model of Christ. If you're a Christian, you are supposed to be setting the example, hoping they'll follow. And if you do that right, then they'll follow if they want improvement, if they want a better relationship with you, if they want to improve themselves, they'll follow along. If they don't, well then, they're just going to attack you and continue to attack you and continue to use you to get whatever they can. And when they're done, they'll throw you away and find somebody else. That's the scary part and the upsetting part for most people who want to have a relationship with a narcissistic husband or wife or child even, or get along with the boss. So this book seeks to bridge that gap of understanding where they're not talking about the spiritual lens of narcissism. The subject is well talked about, but rarely do you hear anything spiritual involved. Rarely do you hear, what's the spiritual lens behind what's happening here? These works have enriched the understanding regarding narcissism, yet despite their invaluable contributions, I've noted a glaring gap in the discourse. Very few, if not any at all, delve into the spiritual and biblical dimensions of understanding and healing narcissism. So as I wrote this book, I wrote it with that in mind, keeping it in a faith-based direction. It seeks to bridge that gap. By approaching narcissism through a spiritual lens, I aim to offer a fresh perspective on this complex personality type. My goal is not only to provide insights into the narcissistic mind, but also explore the pathways to healing. Those areas that are difficult and for some believe it's impossible, but there can be improvement, and we do want improvement. And if there is improvement, it can make significant changes in people's lives. So the spiritual and relational aspects are a struggle, but it can improve if both people involved are working on it together. Narcissistic individuals are undoubtedly challenging, but God deeply loves them. Just as He loves you, He loves them. He loves all of us. He created us all. And why would He want to destroy us, kill us, but just put us away? He doesn't. The choice is ours. So He offers us the tools, the helps, the helpers, the friends, the family, and so on, the encouragement along the way, or the handwriting on the wall, as I often say during the day. If you're listening for God, you're hearing His words when He's speaking, whether it's through the handwriting on the wall, through something that happens, through an event that you don't understand. There's a lesson in everything. If you're listening for God, you'll hear that lesson coming out of whatever is occurring, including a difficult relationship with a narcissist. The persona of the narcissistic false self can manifest in several ways depending on the individual's experiences and coping strategies. I use the word persona because it's a term Carl Jung used, and it's a term that displays a mask, how they present themselves, and that's the persona. It's a type of emotional expression to hide and to protect. They're scared. If you ever get a nasty person, look through the nastiness, because when you look through it, you see a scared little boy or little girl, and they're protecting themselves with anger or nastiness or criticalness or bossiness or bullying, because they're so afraid on the inside. And when you start to see the inside, then the outside doesn't bother you as much, and you're able to interact over a longer period of time with that person. You may not change them, but you'll be able to communicate with them a little better, get along a little better, and perhaps get a job done that needs to get done despite their difficulties in doing it. The term is an outward identity of the role the individual projects. And Carl Jung popularized the concept in psychology, describing the persona as a social face or identity. And it presents itself to the public. According to Jung, the persona is not the true self, but the construct developed to navigate societal expectations. The fake self. We might say it's a little similar to multiple personality disorder. However, the multiple personality disorder, you see the different identities. When an identity comes out, it may stay out for a little bit or just a short time, and then the other one might come out, or the host person might come out. The narcissist is presenting itself with an alternate identity. You're seeing that alternate identity. However, they're not going to let you see the true self. It's behind the scenes, behind the mirror. They're not going to allow it to come out. But it's a mask. It's an alternate identity. It's not real. And sometimes they'll live their entire life not allowing the true self to come out. And for some, every once in a while, the true self does come out. And they're wonderful to talk to when that true self comes out. They're genuine, they're real, they're kind, they're humbled at those broken moments when the true self comes out. Unfortunately, it quickly gets back in control again. It goes down deep again, and that divided self comes out for self-protection, which is why the longer they can be around love and acceptance and understanding, the more inclined that person on the inside is to want to peek, want to come out and take a look and feel what's really happening. While necessary for functioning within society, an over-reliance on the persona can lead to a fragmented sense of self and diminished authenticity. Not being real, in other words. This is particularly evident in individuals exhibiting these narcissistic traits, where persona becomes defensive structure. Whenever you're around someone who's defensive or easily defensive, think of it as that's their persona, that's their mask they're putting on to protect themselves. What's behind it? Try not to be offended by how they're presenting themselves, it's not you. Let it go in one ear and out the other. Look behind that mask to see the real person. And oftentimes you have better conversations when you can approach it that way, and longer conversations. Narcissism is characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance, a need for excessive admiration. They're like a balloon that needs to be puffed up. And I often say in their minds, they're constantly puffing up their minds. They have to inflate their image, not only to others, but to themselves. And inflating that image is like a balloon. If you pop it, watch out. You don't want to pop it. If you let some air out of it by speaking truth in love, in gentleness, with respect, it's going to let some air out. They're going to feel frightened. They're going to feel threatened by it, and they're going to react to want to puff it back up. Their instant reaction to puff it back up is attack, criticize, play mind games and whatever else, puffing it back up. And if you don't react to that, if you don't overreact to that, then they feel less of a need to puff it back up quickly. And if they're doing it slowly enough, you're planting some seeds in that interaction that you're having with them. And those seeds hopefully will grow later. Can't guarantee it. They're very difficult. Oftentimes they don't change. They can improve. And those who really want to change, with the Lord's help, if they turn to God and become that new person, they transform, in other words, as a believer, as a new individual, yeah, they can become a new character. Think of Paul in the Bible, in the New Testament. Paul was very much a narcissist. He was a malignant narcissist. He killed Christians. He chased them down. And he had his inflated sense of self. God changed him. That moment with Jesus, that encounter with Jesus, broke him. And Jesus had to blind him to get his attention. Sometimes that's what happens with the narcissists who do change. It's a brokenness that occurs. It's a hitting a final bottom, like an addict has to hit that final bottom. And when they hit that bottom and there's a brokenness, then it scares them enough that they're able to let down that guard and make those changes. And look at Paul. Look at the changes that he made throughout the New Testament. Most of the New Testament is his writings. And gosh, love, peace, get along, all these wonderful things that he had to say, passing along God's word, that didn't come from a narcissistic heart. That came from a genuine heart. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could do that with the people we love or care about who are narcissists, who are very difficult in getting along with? It'll happen if they want it to happen. And if God intervenes, certainly it will happen. And so pray for God's intervention whenever you're dealing with someone you care about or someone you need to get along with, like a boss at work or a supervisor at work. The persona of the narcissistic individual serves their craftiness. It's a presentation of themselves to get their supply, to get their needs, to get what they want, what they feel entitled to. And it helps them in, like a gamer playing a game, it helps them in playing the game to validate, to get what they want, to get you to admire them or whatever else so they can receive what they're entitled to. This facade may project any number of things: confidence, competence, charm. Well, can also present itself as anger. The bully in school. Those are the early stages of narcissism. And if they continue with that, then they're going to become more of a bully in their adult life. The narcissistic persona functions as a protective mask, allowing individuals to maintain control over their self-image and manipulate how others perceive them. So this book is a book that highlights that persona, the masks, the various masks, and we'll be identifying 7 of them for sure, of narcissistic personalities, and we'll be discussing the toxic parent with the narcissistic parent as well along the way. From a biblical standpoint, the concept of persona aligns with warnings against hypocrisy and superficiality. Jesus admonished the Pharisees for their outward displays of, piety, pride. I'm better than you. I'm pompous. I know it all. How dare you question me? And it neglects that inner transformation of their heart. Jesus said, if you knew the Father, you would know me. In their heart, they weren't real. They didn't know God. They were pretending to know God, and Jesus called them on it. And they didn't like that. Matthew 23, verse 27 tells us this: "Woe to you, teachers of the law and the Pharisees, you hypocrites! You're like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean." In other words, you put on a good face, but on the inside it's really ugly in there. It's really nasty in there. The narcissistic personas similarly emphasize external appearance over internal authenticity or realness or genuineness. The Bible advocates for humility and authenticity, urging believers to focus on their inner character. So when we read the Bible, when we read the New Testament, when we hear the words of Jesus, when we receive that understanding of who God is, what is God like, what's the heart of God, all of a sudden we're recognizing it's okay to be that way. It's okay to be real. It's okay to be genuine. And we don't feel that need to present ourselves with a mask of narcissism or whatever else we may present ourselves with. I can be real. I can go to the grocery store. I can go to the restaurant. Just be me. I don't care what anybody's thinking. It's okay. That's whatever they're thinking is up to them. I'll just be me. And now I'm at peace. I'm relaxed. I'm at ease. Narcissists will tell me when they have those moments of brokenness, they were never at peace. They were never at ease. They were constantly on guard. And in that little moment that they might have, this feels good. Oh, it's okay to be me. It's okay to be this way. But oftentimes, as soon as they walk out the door, okay, they got to be on guard again. If you're one of those, make those changes and stick with it. But you can't do it alone. You got to do it with God's help. And those are the ones who really change. They receive that help from God and they make those changes on the inside. And so the Lord does not look at the things people look at according to the scripture. In 1 Samuel 16:7, it says people look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And that's why I say to you, when you're dealing with a difficult person, don't just look at their difficulties, look through it, try to look into the heart. Addressing the over-reliance on narcissistic persona requires fostering authenticity or genuineness and inner healing. Counseling or therapy. Therapy is counseling. Counseling is therapy. Those interventions can help individuals confront the underlying insecurities and shame that drive narcissistic behaviors. But then part 2 of all that is biblical encouragement for renewal. The Bible emphasizes the transformation of heart and mind through Christ. Romans 12:2 tells us, as we speak of quite often this passage, don't conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The narcissist who's puffed up their minds has to renew it. Renewing it is deflating. To the narcissist, deflating their minds is like an opiate addict, an OxyContin addict, having to detox. It's terrible. It's awful. It's excruciating. And they don't want to go through it. And they'll do anything to not have to go through it. No different with a narcissist. So there's a chapter in the book talking about, is narcissism an addictive behavior? It's like an addiction. The detox is terrible for them. The deflation of their fantasy bubble of themselves is excruciatingly painful, difficult, scary, terrifying, so bad that they don't want to go through it. And they'll reinflate it as quickly as they can, just as the addict is going to quit. You put a pill bottle in their view and they're going to take it without even thinking because they don't want to go through it. I recall hearing one addict saying, the pain of going through detox is so great, I would rather, at the moment, I just can't stand the thought of going through that pain. I have to have whatever it is to stop that from happening. They feel they're going to die. The narcissist feels they're going to cease to exist. Life around them is overwhelming at those moments. Through the transformation, individuals are called to shed their masks and embrace an identity grounded in God's love and purpose rather than societal approval or external approval or expectations. There's psychological tools, that's counseling. Then there's biblical truth. If you put those together, you're going to get a true transformation, a true change. Focus on the healing from the inside out, moving from false self to authentic identity in Christ. Again, you can't make them do it. They have to want to do it, but you can set the example, lead the way, set firm and healthy boundaries, and we'll be discussing that later. In doing so, you're protecting yourself while interacting with them, and you're reminding yourself whatever they're saying to you, let it go in one ear and out the other. Let it roll off your back. It's not true. It's their perception or their defense. It's their way of protecting. It's their way of entitlement to get what they want. You don't have to give it to them, though. You can set the healthy boundaries and maintain those boundaries with truth, in love, and you give them the freedom to receive it or not. You don't try to force them to believe it, to receive it. Plant the seeds. Then it's between them and God at that point. And hopefully they'll listen to God at that point. The narcissistic mask hides a deep need for love. It hides a deep need for redemption. They don't know it, but that's what's in it. It's a hidden need for being loved, for being nurtured in a healthy way. Through truth, grace, and therapeutic or counseling care, healing is possible. God calls every heart, masked or broken, to wholeness. Well, that's our introduction for this new series. Pay attention as you're interacting with other people. And I think when you pay attention to these things, you start to notice people and their masks. We all wear masks at times. You know, we go to a meeting or something like that, and we want to look like we're okay or look like everybody else. So we might put on a little bit of a mask. But gee, if you just be yourself, you don't have to put on the mask. It's okay. It doesn't matter what they think or whatever, Listen for God. When I go into a meeting, I listen, Lord, what do you want me to see here? What do you want me to know? What do you want me to do? Where do you want me to sit? Oftentimes I notice there's a particular place he wants me to sit, and I'll sit there. I don't know why, but I'll go ahead and sit there, and I'll sit there. And lo and behold, there was a particular reason I was sitting right next to that person. It just happens that way. But if you're not listening for God and you're more worried about what other people are thinking about you, then you're not going to experience those opportunities in life. Next time, we're going to talk about unmasking narcissism's false self, the masks of mirrored defenses. I hope you'll join us. If you got something out of this today, please give us a like. We appreciate that. And I hope that your troubles will be minor, blessings more, and happiness come through your door. God bless. We'll see you next time.